Can you all see the slides? Are slides visible to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani. So today is a very interesting topic, that is formulating and managing your research topic. So in this, we will cover different things on how to choose your thesis, how to select your supervisor, what are the important things to take care while doing the research, and what are the things you should avoid while doing the research. Okay, so what makes a good research topic? Any suggestion? So a good research topic is the one that gives you a thesis, pass your examination, or something else. Yes, it is very important that if you can submit a thesis out of this topic and you can pass your defense and which means examination. But there are other qualities as well, that it it must have some novelty involved, something original thing. It set it in context of the research field and the how you have executed it. So there are multiple things which you have to take care. Number one is the novelty. Number two is the research field or the context of the research. And number three is how you are going to execute it, which you have to be careful when you select the topic. This is that when you have to ask or check.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, your voice is not clear.
Okay. Just give me a second.
सर डिस्टॉर्शन आ रही है आवाज.
Is it clear now? Can you listen to me?
Yes, sir, it is.
So it is much better now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I was saying is that when you are selecting a research topic, you have to take care of three things. Number one, that the topic must have some novelty. Number two, what is the context of the research? What are the objectives? And number three is how can you competently execute the research? Is it possible to execute the research or not? Okay. What is a novelty? Is it a completely new idea? Any one of you? Or it has some specific outcomes or a specific subject or a new methodology? Yours, what do you think? So it is something new. This is the novelty. But in the research, generally, it depends upon the level at which we are executing the research. Are you doing a PhD or are you doing a master's research? How much time you have and how many questions you can answer. So then you will decide the novelty. Secondly, it depends upon the outcome and the methodology. Is it a completely new methodology you are developing? Then yes, it is. It has a novelty. But if you are following some standards and you are following the procedure already published and an already uh, decided procedures like ASTM standards or some British standards or European standards, so then will there be a novelty in it or not? Yes, what do you think?
So there can be a novelty, sir.
Exactly. Yes, there will be a novelty depending upon the experiment you are performing on what type of domain you are doing that experiment. So yes, the methodology is well defined. ठीक है, according to a standard, there is no novelty in the methodology, but what you are trying to achieve from that may define the novelty in it. Okay, thank you very much, Yasir, for the feedback. So this is just
Sir, I have a question, sir.
yes, Yasir.
Sir, if we are not following any standards such as British standards or American standards, but our outcome is different, so what kind of novelty is it, sir? I mean, the previous one that I have said, it was also a novelty, but you have said that the novelty criteria is different. So how can we judge it?
So, for example, you are asking that if the methodology is already established, like you are trying to establish a methodology, there is no certain protocols on the experiment which you are going to perform, then you have to see that what you are trying to achieve, what are your objectives, what are you going to check from this experiment methodology, and has it been done before, and if not, then yes, it is a novelty. If you have changed the experiment, then there is a novelty in it as well, because you have changed the methodology based upon some literature. Okay, the previous experiment does not check this, there was a limitation on the previous experiment which you have modified, and you have developed a new methodology, and now you are checking the same property, let's suppose whatever modulus of elasticity, and you have modified the experimental methodology by considering some other limitations which was not considered before, then it is a novelty in itself. Yes, it is novel. Okay, Asir?
Okay, sir.
Thank you. So what do I mean by context? So the by context is that has someone else done it? What methodology will you be adopting, and how you are going to justify your research? So this is all the context of the, like, what are the objectives of your research, what are the gap you are trying to hit, have you read the enough literature and you have said that this is a gap or not. So based upon all this, you will decide the context of the research, or in other words, the methodology or your objectives of the research. So this is the second most important point. And you will come to this when you will be doing your literature survey, or when you will be deciding your topic. Okay. And the third point is competence. Number one, do you have enough skills to do the project? Or if not, can you attain that skills within the certain time period? You have 6 months to do the research or 1 year to do the research. Can you obtain the skill and execute it or not? So or if in other words, competence can be said that do you have the required equipment to do the methodology, or the expertise? Does your supervisor has the expertise to help you in this? So you have to decide on, or do you, what are the limitations which can happen in this? You can't select a topic and after 6 months of your research you come to say that, oh sir, this project is not possible because we don't have the equipment in the lab. Okay, you're getting my point? Or you can't do it at the middle of your research. You have to do it before you start the research, when you are selecting the topic. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So when you choose, you have to be creative. So you have to be bringing some ideas. As we have discussed in the first lecture, that in the research, when you are choosing the topic and when you are trying to hit the gap,
You have to be creative. And how you can be creative? By asking multiple questions or by raising the ideas, using your brain to think on this specific topic and think like, why he hasn't done this, or can he should have done he should have researched this factor as well, why he hasn't researched this factor. So these are some of the questions you should ask. Okay, you have to be creative, and this will help you in finding out the novelty in your research. Okay, this is just a comic. Be creative, and here don't get like, there will all be being a supervisor, it is very good. Supervisor feels very happy when a student comes with a multiple innovative and creative ideas. Sir, why can't we do this? Sir, why can't we do this? I have read a paper and I have found that he has done this research, but he forgot to do this experiment. So bring up these things. Some, and never say that any idea is a foolish. Be optimistic and be creative, and this will give you some like interesting thing, or a point of view interesting, so you get motivated in your research. You will enjoy your research if you try to be creative. Test the project viability. As I've discussed before, is it possible? How will you do it? What do you need? Simple experiments, check the experiments, ask the experts, and then eliminate and refine. Which means that you have, while choosing the topic, you have to see that, is it viable? Can you do it? Do you have the expertise? Do you need some specific skills? Can you achieve those skills within the time or not? You have to think about these things when you are selecting the topic. Don't come to the supervisor, sir, I want to get the Nobel Prize and I think it is possible and I just need these one or two things and we can do it. Be creative, but at the same time be logical. That what are the things we have here and what are the expertise we need, and do we have those expertise here or not? And if, for example, these expertise are not available, or the skills you need to execute the research is very difficult to obtain in 6 months, then try to modify or eliminate those points and try to refine your research. This is a very important point. Generally, people become very optimistic when they come to the supervisor with a research topic. And this optimism is good, but during this optimism, they sometimes forget, or they sometimes didn't check these viability. And when they start doing the research, they hit a very strict, big hurdle. And then at that stage, they become, oh, what should I do? I've spent 6 months on literature review and defining the methodology and doing this and that. And now what should I do? It is a very big. So try to think about all the possible hurdles and see that what is it, because your aim should be to do it as soon as possible. Do your research as soon as possible with a good output. And I mean by good output is a publication. Okay. You can also do your research without a publication, but that won't be a very good research. This means that your research is not proclaimed or your research is not accepted worldwide. It's just within this department. So your topic, so there are 3 approaches which can happen. You know your topic and you know how to do it. What is the approach you are going to take? Or you know the topic, you know the problem statement, you know the gap, but you don't know how to do it. That there is a novelty here. You can devise your own methodology, which is a very big novelty. This is the third step, which generally happens in PhD, is that sometimes you don't know the objective, you don't know the gap. or in other words, you are like struggling with finding the topic and you also don't know the approach. And this is very common in the first year of PhD, I'm telling you. So this is the best approach, that you know the problem, but you don't know the approach and you develop the approach. And generally in the masters, we know the topic and we know the approach. So this is generally we try to do in masters by research, or sometimes second point as well. So think that where your project lies. Do you know the approach which you are going to do, and what are your aim and objectives? What is the research gap? So think that where you lie. This is not good. This third point is not good. First two is fine. So always know the big picture. And how you will know the big picture? By doing the literature survey. Okay. So literature survey is actually also evaluated. This is just I wanted to show you the importance of the literature survey. So when you have written your thesis and your thesis has been evaluated by your supervisor, and this is very serious when you are doing PhD, because in PhD some external super examiners will be reading your thesis and they will check these two criteria or 2 points. And even in the presentation which you are going to present in your defense, the examiners will ask you on these points. Number one, capable of independent and critical thought and can see the work in relation to the work of others. So, like, have you done the independent literature survey and have you input your critical thought, like what is missing in this research paper, and have you given a conclusion against each literature, or it's just like ABC have done this and this is the result, CDEF, like you are just quoting that this Mr. XYZ has done this research and this is his results, and Mr. ABC has done this research and this is his results. You are not giving any critical point of view. You are not critiquing the research of others. Then this shows that you don't have the capability of critical thinking. And this is a very important point, that can you do the critical review? Can you critique? Because by critiquing, you will find the gap. You will come to know, okay, what is missing? Okay, and in that critiquing, by critical thoughts or critical review of a paper, you will find the novelty in your research. Okay, and the second point is, are you able to demonstrate an unawareness and understanding of the literature relevant to the topic and the capacity to make considered judgment? Have you done research on your area of research, or you are just reading XYZ papers without thinking that either this research is relevant to you or not? Yes, Mr. Rizwan, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. I want to ask you that कि जब हम बात करते हैं कि आप क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस की, तो क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस जब भी किसी चीज़ का किया जाता है तो उसके लिए बने इतना नॉलेज पास होना चाहिए कि हम क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस कर सकें. लेकिन एट द मोमेंट कि हम रिसर्च पेपर्स पढ़ रहे हो तो हम ऑलरेडी वो चीज़ ढूंढने की कोशिश कर रहे होते हैं जो कि हमारी फील्ड में न्यू हो या नोवेलिटी हो. तो उस पर हमारी क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस कैसे किया जा सकता है? वो तो पॉसिबल ही तब होता है जब आपके पास एट द बैक नॉलेज होगा.
Rizwan, this is a very good question, and thank you for asking this. Rizwan has asked the question that to do the critical review, you need certain knowledge before you can do a critical review. So Rizwan, the answer is, to do the critical review, the task is that you have to read a lot of papers on that certain topic, at least 5 to 10 papers on that certain topic, and based upon that you will acquire a certain knowledge. And after acquiring the certain knowledge, then you can do a critical review on that okay, Mr. XYZ has done the same experimentation, but according to him this approach is good and this approach is bad. Mr. ABC was doing this approach, So you can do the critique based upon some other research. Okay, so you will have to acquire certain knowledge by critiquing. I am not saying that you have to give in your own point of view. You can use some other's point of view to critique. Okay, you're getting my point?
But sir, others' point of view is not like a critical analysis. Critical analysis is you are saying like critical analysis is self or self thoughts.
Hmm.
So others'
Yes.
knowledge is
So what?
more
So
than
I'm
critical
actually
analysis.
giving Rizwan. I'm actually telling you that you initially you don't have the knowledge. You will come to know about this by reading some papers. And when you have come to know about certain point of view, that is stored in your mind. And when you read another paper which is against the paper you have read and you have observed, then you can use that knowledge to critique. You're getting my point?
Yes, sir.
So actually you are critiquing, but based upon the knowledge of some other people. I'm not saying that ABC is critiquing XYZ. You will be critiquing based upon the knowledge you will get from ABC, Mr. ABC. Yes, Irfan, you want to ask some question?
नो सर, जो आप लोगों ने बस एक्सप्लेन किया था, बस यही।
Okay, thank you.
Sir,
Yes, Yasser.
sir, while during research, if we found some results that are not irrelevant, then what we should do, sir, in doing research?
Like while doing research, some results are irrelevant.
Yes, sir,
What
if we are doing a research and we found that the results that we want to achieve are irrelevant, then what we should do, sir?
you just ignore them? Irrelevant.
Uh, we should exclude it, or we should do some other things to
If it is irrelevant, you are not your research object. The results you are getting are not related to the objectives or the gap. Then you will not include it in your research. Why you want to include it if it is irrelevant? Irrelevant.
okay.
Okay. So this is just an example of the examiners, few of examiners who have reviewed a PhD thesis. So this is for a PhD thesis. You also have to write one chapter in your thesis, that is the literature survey or literature review or state of the art literature review. Multiple, you can give it a different name, but that is your chapter 2. Okay. So there are two. So in this you can see examiner 1, the candidate. So if he has reviewed, and you will see that the examiners are observing few things. The first examiner is observing the candidate is clearly aware of the literature. The thesis, however, chooses for an exploratory approach rather than providing a critical evaluating literature review. So the thesis does not have a critique. He is not identifying the gaps, or he is not raising the limitations of the literature review. So this paper has done this, but he forgot to do this. So he's not doing this critical evaluation. So this is very important. More focus in the background chapters would have been a clearer indication of the candidate's capability of making a considered judgment. So he's like raising that more focus should be given in the background chapter. So the second examiner, the thesis has a fairly complete summary of the state of the art literature. So he has provided a complete survey, but unfortunately no critical comparison of the existing techniques is being attempted. So this is a very important point. Generally your thesis has been evaluated for your literature review is always evaluated, and they have been evaluated against these points, that have you done some critical comparison or not. He's just like raised the points. The author has provided a comprehensive survey of whatever, Nevertheless, I think the related work could be organized with a better classification. For example, the related work part occupies 80 pages, which is more than half of the whole thesis. It could be more concise and precise. So this is another point. So literature review can't be more half of your thesis. Okay, it generally comprise about 25 to 30% of your thesis. So you have to be very careful about that. So literature survey is intimately tied up with the definition of the topic. So literature survey is generally a focused research on a topic of your research. Find a style of surveying the literature that suits you, but make sure to be critical, to look at both the details and the big picture. So when you are doing the survey of the literature, you have to be very careful that what is the topic of your research, and try to be critical in the literature. Don't start reading like 70 and 80 papers on different topics. It is just a waste of time. First, try to identify the problem, then focus on that problem and try to read papers on that specific problem which you are trying to hit. And then read papers on that. Don't start reading papers here and there, and this is just a waste of time. Okay? And be critical. When you will start reading paper on a certain specific problem, you will come to know about you will be able to critique the research. Okay, so this is a very important. So based upon the literature survey, you have selected the topic. Now how do you manage it, and how do you make sure you are progressing? So first was selecting the topic. Second is managing the topic. Do you have any questions?
सर ये
Okay.
पिछले स्लाइड में फर्स्ट नंबर एग्जांपल में सर एग्जामिनर वन क्या कहना चाहता है इसमें?
Examiner 1 is saying that the person is explaining the topic on the other people's research, but he is not critically evaluating the literature. He is not critiquing the research. Okay, for example, in the literature survey, you will give all the list of literature which you have studied. Okay, and based upon your study, you will be raising the points. Okay, this person has done this person has done this. But beside telling that, okay, this is first approach, this is second approach, this is third approach, this person has done this experiment, just telling this does not satisfy your literature survey. You have to tell, you have to critique as well. And by critique, you have to raise some points. Okay, but he forgot to do this. मिसाल के तौर पे आप एक you read a research paper, and after reading the research paper, you come to know about the problem, but you don't have to tell that, okay, this is the results and this is the experimental methodology, this is the results, these are the conclusion. That's it. You then move to the second research paper. You have to give your feedback as well, based upon your knowledge which you have acquired from the literature survey. In other words, you have to give some 2 to 3 lines as a critique. Okay, but his experimental approach was lacking this. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
So the second point is communication. Yes.
Can you repeat it again, sir? And how
Which
to read
point?
a research paper?
Sorry, Irfan.
सर कि हम क्रिटिकली एक पेपर को कैसे पढ़ेंगे?
Irfan, I was telling that you have to not only tell that this was the research done on this, you have to give some critique as well. If you read a research paper, you always tell that, okay, this has been done by Mr. XYZ, Mr. ABC, but you have to tell that what is missing. You have to critique. Maybe you can say the experimental methodology is very obsolete. It is now not being used, and it has been it was done in 1900s, but in 2010, after 2010, this methodology is obsolete. So you have to give some critique. Okay. Yes, Arbaz.
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है सर। असाइनमेंट हमें मिला था कंक्रीट टेक्नोलॉजी में कि कोई कंस्टिट्यूटिव रिलेशन पढ़े कंक्रीट का। तो सर मैंने सर्चिंग किया कि जो 57,000 √f-c वाला फार्मूला किस पेपर में डिराइव किया है। सर मैंने बहुत सर्च किए लेकिन मुझे नहीं मिली है। तो अब अगर सपोज मैं ये रिसर्च करना चाहता हूँ कि मैं इलास्टिसिटी और स्ट्रेंथ को रिलेट करना चाहता हूँ, मैं तो सर्चिंग कर लूंगा लेकिन मुझे वो E = 57,000 √f-c वाला फार्मूला नहीं मिलेगा। तो मैं कहूँगा कि सर ये मिसिंग है, हालांकि वो में मौजूद होगा। तो हम ये चीज़ कैसे एश्योर करें अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट कि मैं 120 या 20-30 पेपर पढ़ लूँ तो ये चीज़ एश्योर होगी। तो किस तरह मैं इस चीज़ को एश्योर करूँगा सर?
Okay. So
सर
Mr.
मैंने
Arbaz,
क्वेश्चन एक्सप्लेन कर दिया?
Ji. Arbaz has a question that he was doing research on 57,000 under root FC prime, that is equal to modulus of elasticity. It is an empirical formula in concrete technology, and he said that he was unable to find the formula. So how can we assure that by doing the literature survey, is it available or not, and should we have to read like 120 papers to identify it? So Arbaz, the answer to this is that when you are doing the literature survey, there is a methodology of selecting or moving backwards. So what you do is that if that formula or whatever you are researching on, like strength or modulus of elasticity or strength strain relationships, what you do is, if you are targeting some empirical formula and you want to find out that how that empirical formula is derived, then you have to move backward. The first paper which you find, or for example in a book you are studying, you observe some formula and you want to see that how it has been derived, so you have to go to the references of that book and you have to select the reference which is quoting that, or you have to see from the citation that where that research paper is, which research paper or which book is telling this formula. If that book doesn't have the reference, then search another book and see the reference, and then you have to move backward, then go to that reference and see that is it available over there or not. So this is like you select and you keep on reading the references, and based upon the reading references you will be able to find it. Okay, you don't go to Google and start searching, okay, what is it. If you know the formula, go to the book which is telling the formula and go to the references of the book and try to find it out. Okay.
सर
Yes.
हेलो
Yes.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि सर अभी तो हमें पता है कि ये फार्मूला एग्जिस्ट करता है, लेकिन अगर हम ये इमेजिन करें कि ये फार्मूला नहीं है और फिर मैं उसी केस में चला जाऊं, मैंने एक्सपीरियंस किया कि मैं फार्मूला रिलेट करूं कोई एफ-सी का और ई का, तो मुझे तो वो नहीं मिलेगा। तो मैं तो ये क्रिटिक करूंगा कि जी ये फार्मूला तो एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता है, तो चलो मैं ये रिसर्च करके ये फार्मूला डिराइव करता हूँ, हालांकि वो पहले से मौजूद होगा। तो अब मैं किस तरह, मतलब मुझे श्योर होगा कि नहीं मैंने जो सर्चिंग की है वो ठीक की है?
Okay, so like your question is that if you want to like you want to critique on a certain domain, but you don't know that it exists. Because sorry Arbaz, I'm not getting your question. Please. Elaborate
जी
it further.
मेरे कहने का मतलब ये, सर अगर ये कंक्रीट का जो ये रिलेशन है ये तो अभी हमारे पास मौजूद है, लेकिन अब अगर मैं कोई नया चीज, अब अगर हम ये इमेजिन कर ले कि ये वाला फार्मूला नहीं है, तो फिर मैं तो पूरा लिटरेचर रिव्यू करूंगा। मैंने तो अब फाइंड नहीं किया तो मैं तो ये क्रिटिक करूंगा, मैं तो ये कह दूंगा कि ये फार्मूला लिटरेचर में अवेलेबल नहीं है, तो अभी मैंने इस पर रिसर्च किया और मैंने ये डिराइव किया है। और जब मैं फिर फाइनल प्रेजेंटेशन में ये प्रेजेंट करूँ तो फाइनल प्रेजेंटेशन में मुझे कोई दूसरा बंदा कहे कि जी ये तो पहले से अवेलेबल था तो आपने क्यों किया, तो फिर वहां पर तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं आ जाएगी।
Okay, now I
मैंने तो
got
ये
your
फार्मूला
question.
सर्च किया, मुझे नहीं मिला, हालांकि ये फार्मूला पहले से
Uh,
अवेलेबल था, लेकिन अब अगर हम ये इमेजिन कर ले कि ये फार्मूला अवेलेबल नहीं है तो फिर तो मैं फंस जाऊंगा।
Okay, so now this is a very interesting question that you have to make sure that this is not been done before. Like you are developing a formula and at the end you come to know that that formula already exists and the research you have done is like in vain. So that's why literature survey is very important, that you have to make sure that whatever you are doing is not available, and for that, Mr. Arbaz, you have to read some papers. Okay? And by reading papers, you have to read the latest papers. You don't go to the 1990s, because in 90s papers there might be something which is not been proved, and based upon that 1990s paper you said, okay, this has been not done, this has been not done, this has been not done, and you do it and you come to know that in 2010 and 2012 that has already been researched. Okay, so for that you have to read papers which are in the latest or in the near future, and then you have to develop a gap from the current research, not on the based upon the previous research, and then you have to find out that what has been researched and what has not been researched, because the current research which has been published is based upon the novelty. If something is published today, this means that it is not been researched before, and then you have to develop a gap from it. Okay, Arbaz?
ओके सर, थैंक यू।
Okay,
सर तो मैं
so
वहां पर ये गलती कर रहा था कि मैं पुराने पेपर देख रहा था, इस वजह से मुझे वो फार्मूला नहीं मिल रहा था।
yes, that is a very big reason.
एम आई राइट सर?
Yes.
ओके सर, थैंक यू।
And another point or another announcement I want to make is there is an assignment 3 which has been uploaded on LMS, and that is on your critical. I want to see your how you can be critical and honor some research papers. So what you have to do is, let me show you. So this is your assignment 3. You have to critique a journal article review. So in this, what you have to do is you have to try to question these things. What is the problem? Why is it important? How did the author study the problem? Then you come to know and you will try to critique based upon some literature. So find 2 to 4 related papers on your area of interest, whatever you like to study. Read, think, and reread, uh, and then you try to make a draft summary of the article you have chosen to review. And in the draft summary, I have given the method on how to organize. You have to give the full bibliography of the citation, then you have to provide an introduction, summary, on then you will critique 3 to 4 paragraphs, and after critique you will conclude, and then you will provide the references. So you will make a 2 to 3 pages critical review of any journal article. You can select it, maybe latest or maybe an old, but you will have to critique based upon some other research. Okay. So this is the document I have already shared with you. Okay. And this is your assignment 3 on how to critique a literature. Okay, let's come back to the so after the literature survey, now you have a topic. Now you have to manage it. And how do you make sure you are progressing? So, as always, the first point is communication. How you can communicate the progress with your supervisor. Okay. You have to expect criticism. So, in your research, you will be criticized by a supervisor to see the progress. A supervisor must be honest, and if the progress is poor, you must be told. Ask straight out if the supervisor feels you are capable. Okay, so he will ask you, like here, it is a very interesting. I made comments on the paper you wrote. I got a little carried away with the red ink, and this is the comments you have received. And please summarize your research. So extract criticism, and this actually helps you in your research when you will be doing your MS by research thesis. So you will be communicating with your supervisor and ask straight out if the supervisor feels you are capable. So you have to be prepared for that. Expect up and down relationship with your supervisor and try to resolve the issues as early as possible. It is a very interesting comic. So I have some good news and a bad news. So the good news is we have been invited to a prestigious conference in a resort in Acapulco. I don't know where it is. The bad news is you have to write the research paper and the deadline is in 5 days. Also, I am going to the conference, not you. I guess the good news only applies to me. So, yeah. So, expect up and down. Try to resolve the issues as early as possible. So, yes, Manzoor.
सर सर अगर हमारे पास इस तरह का टॉपिक हो जो हम फ्यूचर रिकमेंडेशन से ले ले तो उसमें तो ये इशू नहीं होगा कि उस पे पहले कम हुआ है या अगर सर इस तरह रिसर्च हो कि उसने फ्यूचर रिकमेंडेशन में दिया और उस पे मतलब थोड़ा बहुत कम हो तो वो तो इशू नहीं बनाएगा ना उस पे
Manzoor, if the future recommendations are from 1995, then you have to recheck. But if the future recommendations are in 2020, then it is fine. You're getting my point?
यस सर सर अगर साइड बाय साइड कोई दूसरा भी उस पे काम करो तो वो कोई इशू नहीं है बस
हाँ मास्टर्स लेवल पे इशू नहीं है पीएचडी लेवल में इशू हो सकता है लेकिन मास्टर्स लेवल में कोई इशू नहीं है अरबाज
सर ये जो क्रिटिक्स के लिए सिर्फ सुपरवाइजर को दिखाना जरूरी है या बाकी बंदों को भी जरूरी है
critique can be anyone. Number one is your supervisor. Okay, if you have a co-supervisor, then yes, you expect criticism from your co-supervisor. And here we have a GEC, okay, Graduate Examination Committee. So sometimes you also visit your GEC, like before the defense, you give a presentation to your GEC, and you tell like what you are going to do and how you are going to do. So they sometimes do the criticism as well to your research, so it's better to talk to them as well. Yes, Abdullah bin Ahmed.
So I want to ask how old how back must we go in years to see the latest research? For example, should we go 10 years or 5 years or 2 years?
I guess 10 years is fine. 5 to 10 years is fine, but you have to see the review paper. So the first step is review paper. Try to get a review paper of the latest review paper. on your topic, if it is written. If it is not written, then there is a chance to write a review paper as well. And then you can to understand some basics, you might have to go even to 1990s when this topic, for example, you are doing research on driverless cars. So I was seeing a video on Facebook that the driverless cars were introduced in Japan in 1995 by some professor. And now it is very common. Tesla has the driverless cars. And so what I'm saying is that to understand what is a driverless car, you can read papers in 1995. But if you want to find out the gap and your research, then you have to read latest papers. Arbaz, you have a question?
यस सर।
Please
सर
ask.
कभी कभार सर कभी कभार इस तरह होता है कि हमें कोई चीज मतलब अच्छी लगती हो, लेकिन हमारे सुपरवाइजर को वो अच्छी नहीं लगती, लेकिन हम एट द सेम टाइम ये समझते हैं कि ये अच्छा है, लेकिन वो समझते हैं कि ये अच्छा नहीं है। उस
Hmm.
सिचुएशन को फिर उसमें क्या करना चाहिए? फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं एग्जांपल दी तो फुटर में मैं चाहता हूँ कि रेड लाइन हो, लेकिन सुपरवाइजर कहते हैं कि नहीं ब्लू लाइन होनी चाहिए, लेकिन
Hmm.
फिर भी सर मैं सेटिस्फाई नहीं होता कि ब्लू क्यों होनी चाहिए। तो उस
इसका
केस में सर
जवाब
फिर
I will give you the answer in a certain time. It depends. ठीक है. How is your supervisor? So the psyche of the supervisor you will understand. Will he take it personally or not? If he will take it personally, then it is a dictator. He's kind of a dictator, and he will take it personally. Then it's better to do what he is telling you. Okay.
ओके सर।
Who teaches whom? So this is the start, this is the end. At the start, the supervisor is more knowledgeable on the topic. Or maybe you have certain knowledge. So this is a dotted line. So maybe you have certain knowledge about the topic, but you are still very young because at this time you haven't done major literature review. But as you progress, you will at the finish, what we expect is that you have the knowledge, you have all the knowledge compared to you have much more knowledge than your supervisor at the end. So this is the line progress. So as soon as you move forward, the knowledge of the student will increase, and at the end it will be more. Okay. So important advice is get a notebook and record all your work in it. Get a notebook. So this is very important. Get a notebook and write whatever you want. Whatever you are reading, whatever you are studying, whatever has been discussed by you, and make a research notebook, small notebook, and write down. If you have read a paper, research paper, and you find something interesting, write it over there. Yes, Mohammed Uzair. Sorry for yes, Mohammed Uzair, you have raised your hand. Mohammed Uzair, do you have a question? So important advice is get a notebook, then record meetings and actions, notes from the papers you read, ideas for things to investigate, experiments, and your data. This is very important. Okay. Whatever you are reading, write it down. And set your goals, maybe small goals, like uh, modest ones, like if you in within next 1 month I have to do this within the next 1 month. So set your goals and slowly and gradually you will finish your research topic. Take single steps. And then the learning style. So this is a very interesting thing I come to know, that every person has a learning style he should adopt. So some people are very good in understanding by visual ways. Like I provide some pictures over there and they understand it from that. Some are oral, so they understand by listening. Some loves to read and then their reading skills are very good and they try to understand it by reading, and some has the kinesthetic. So this is by doing something, by doing experiments. So you try to see where you lies and use your skill, your learning style, your ability to to utilize it. If you are good in visual, then watch some pictures, graphs, tables to understand it. If you are oral, then listen to the lectures, tapes, recordings. If you are understand it by reading, then read some research papers, text, kinesthetics, do some experiments, field trips. Okay, and SWOT is means the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So identify your strengths and weaknesses. What are the opportunities you have, and what are the threats? Like, will someone else publish it first? Can you finish it before? So try to work on all these things. Like, what are your strengths? What are your opportunities, threats, weaknesses? And try to do to get an output using your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, using your intake skill. What is your intake? If you are good in visual, then you get an output. Try to draw to let yourself understand. If you are oral, then write ideas. If you are good in reading, then read papers and then write it. So weaknesses, if you are shy, then it is very important then you present more often. To small groups, 3, 4 friends, try to be more try to present it more often to get over your weakness. If you are a poor writer, then write something. Write up every week. Not confident of ideas, bounce off a friend. If you, because friends generally enjoy your company and you can share your ideas, so you will become more confident in that way. Poor communicator, then practice and ask for the criticism, then act upon it. So use your, try to identify your weakness and try to work on it. Similarly, communications is very crucial in this research. That is, you communicate it in the form of thesis to get the degree, papers, get your work out there in the international community and get it criticized as well prior to the examination. Then you can have the seminars and conference where you can discuss your ideas, feedbacks. You can have a chance to communicate with other peoples, and it is a kind of a social gathering. So be crucial, like what are the ways of communication, and then communicate, and communicating the values of, so sound well understood by you, interesting, leading to somewhere. So this is very important, that the idea you are communicating will help you to understand where you are moving ahead. Okay, so this is some of the tips to how to manage your research by you. Like, one was to use a notebook, to communicate with your supervisor, to understand your weaknesses, and to strengthen yourself, see where you stand. So there is a website here, VA. So if you click on it, I will share the slides. So there is a small survey. From that survey, you will understand where you lie. Do you have a visual skill, oral, read, kinesthetic? So it would be very interesting. You have any questions? Then I will come to the most interesting part of the lecture. Yes, any question regarding managing your research? Yes, Uzair.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have two questions. The first one is, if we only change the location of a research, would it be accepted for our master degree or not? And the second one is, if we set different objectives for our research relating to the same field, for example, within hydrology, we set different goals. In each of them might need different literature reviews, but just to publish more papers as per the requirements of PhD, could we conduct a research on multiple objectives or not? And the other question is, sir, what is the difference between the research paper and the thesis that we write? Because I am a little confused. There are some parts in research paper and also in thesis. So are they the same? Only the page differs, or what?
Okay,
What?
Uzair, let me know, are you a PhD student or MS?
I'm an MS student.
MS student, okay. So now you're coming to your first question. Your first question was, can you do your research somewhere else? Am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For example, if there is a specific research plan and I want to conduct it in somewhere else without any novelty, could I do it?
Like somewhere else means to do conduct your research in some other location outside NUST, or like I
No,
didn't
no, sir.
understand your
For example,
question.
one research is conducted in USA or Pakistan, I want to
Hmm.
conduct the same research in Afghanistan
Okay.
without any novelty, without my contribution to it.
Okay, so okay, I got your, so there was a methodology developed and you want to adopt that methodology for your own country or for some other location. So yes, you can do it and it is a novelty. Yes, if it has not been done before, for example, a methodology was developed and the goals were set for the methodology, but that has been done only on America, or let's suppose Japan, or let's suppose Australia. But that methodology has not been applied on Pakistan. Then to get that goal, for example, annual rainfall or whatever, if it is in hydrology. So yes, you can do it. You can apply it here on Pakistan, and it can be, or Afghanistan, and it will be a novelty. Okay, that's. I hope I have answered your first question. And your second question was, if you have multiple objectives, then yes, you will have to do literature review for multiple objectives. If you want to do, let's suppose, if you are doing mm, if you are doing research on hydrology, let me think, you want to study the energy output, and you also want to study the annual rainfall, and you also want to study, for example, the snowfall data to calculate the contribution of snow in the annual. So these are multiple objectives, and for each objective you have to study different domains, different research papers, different methodologies on how you can do the calculations. Then yes, you will have to read multiple research papers. Then what you can do is that in your literature review chapter, you divide that. You will have some headings like introduction. After the introduction, you can have like first heading of snowfall evaluation. So on the snowfall evaluation, you can put all the literature on snowfall evaluation, and then after you move to your second objective and put all the literature and critique and conclusion for your second objective. So in this way, you will conclude that for each domain, you will have a conclusion that based upon your critical thinking, like what is the gap, which what has not been done. Okay, so yes, then you will have to do extensive research on all the questions. Generally at the MS level, we want uh, we define a certain domain and we try to hit one domain only. To get multiple objectives, sometimes it becomes a bit difficult for an MS student. Generally we don't expect that much research from an MS student, but for PhD, yes, you have to do multiple literature survey. And your last question is, what is the difference between thesis and research paper? So the difference between the thesis and the research paper is, the thesis is the requirement of a degree. You have to write a book, and in that book it has some chapters. So it is kind of a complete uh, thesis, complete book having chapters, having a specific story. You introduce the topic, then you provide the literature, and you will conclude your literature, and then you explain your methodology in a chapter, and you explain every step by pictures. Generally, in a research paper, it has a certain limitations. You can't provide more than 10 pictures. You have to be, so the writing style is also very precise. You have to write very accurately and very, you don't have to spend lines and lines on explaining a method on something. In the in your research paper, you don't waste your pages on the some method, like the principles, like how it has happened. You just tell that okay, this is the research problem, and you just write. You don't explain things uh, based upon the past literature. You explain a lot of things in the literature survey, in the thesis. So you just come directly to your methodology, why you have done this methodology and how you have done it, what are the results, your discussion on the results, like why the results are moving up and down and what is happening over here, and then you will conclude your research. Okay.
Thank you
Uzair,
so
I've
much, sir.
answered your question. Thank you. Arbaz, you have a question?
यस सर। सर ये आपने मुख्तलिफ स्किल्स का कहा है कि अपने स्ट्रेंथ को आइडेंटिफाई करे, तो सर जब मतलब रीडिंग पे आ जाती है बात, तो अगर कोई टेक्निकल चीज हो या कोर्स बुक हो, तो वो अगर हम रीड करें तो उसमें फिर भी बहुत थोड़ा बहुत इंटरेस्ट भी पैदा होता है और समझ भी आ जाता है। लेकिन सर अगर कोई जनरल इंग्लिश नावल या इस तरह कोई इंग्लिश लिटरेचर से कोई रिलेटेड बुक हो, तो फिर जब हम उसको रीड करते हैं तो उसकी बिल्कुल समझ नहीं आती। तो अब हम अपने स्ट्रेंथ को किस तरह आइडेंटिफाई करें उस केस में?
Strength को identify. I'm
मतलब
telling
कि
you.
रीडिंग
हाँ,
में
I got your answer. So this is like generally. So this, from this point, I understand that if you don't like to read, this means that you love to have a visual and a lecture, because by your participation I guess you prefer to intake by talking, by lecturing, by recording tapes, or maybe by visual presentation. You don't love to read a lot, or you got bored. So every person has a different skill. If you ask me, I love to read, but my intake quality is visual and oral. I can't take a lot of data by reading and then my mind stops working. So every person has a different, you don't have to worry. Yes, Aisha?
Assalamualaikum. Sir, my question is related to Rahil's question, that can we adopt same methodology as done previously for some part of country? Let's say some districts or rain-fed areas of Pakistan or Upper Punjab, and we want to apply same procedure for the water scarce areas or for Lower Punjab. And will it be same novel as previous research, or will novelty be affected?
Yes, it will be novel, Aisha. Yes, it will be novel, because if it has not been done before, then you can, yes, use it, and you can also modify it as well based upon the data or something. And you can also try to evaluate the errors in it. So it can be done, and based upon that you can develop the critical point of view of your research. Okay, have I answered your question?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so let's move to the last part of the lecture, that is, who is your supervisor? So I love this topic, a boss, a friend, a leader, or a superhero. So he can be anyone. He can be a boss, he can be a friend, he can be a leader or a superhero, depending upon his personality. So managing the supervisory process. So it is a very interesting thing, that generally here, to do your master's research, you need a supervisor. And you have to remember one thing, that the aim of your research is the same aim of your supervisor. You don't have to think that your supervisor is only here to critique you. He is not here to critique you. He is just pushing you in the right direction by critiquing you, by being critical. Okay, but remember that your aim and your supervisor aim is the same. If you remember this, then things become much easier for both of you. Okay, so yes, it is a kind of a relationship, and it can have mismatch or personality clash depending upon the lack of the communication. So it is very important. If you don't come to your supervisor and communicate with your supervisor, then things becomes difficult. Okay, it's it's very important then you have to communicate with your supervisor. So communication, how can you communicate about the expectations? So generally, if there are two extremes, one is no explicit discussion and the other one is a contract. So in no explicit discussion, you have not approached your supervisor like what you want to do, how you are going to do. You have not discussing it at all. Then there is a lack of communication and the project will fail. Okay, and you will get time barred. The other one is a contract. So it is like a strict binding. Okay, you have to come 9 to 5 every day and this and that, and you have to do this experiment daily and this. So it is another extreme. So if it isn't made explicit, then you need to ask the questions. So if you have to see that where you are heading. Have your supervisor approached you? Have your supervisor got the chance to talk to you? Or is he explaining you what you want to do? If he is not, then you need to ask questions. Okay? And to find out what your supervisor's preference are and what to expect, and to express your opinion on how you might work best. So this is a very important point, that you have to communicate with your supervisor. You have to meet him and ask him, okay, sir, what do you want from me? What is our aim? What is the project? And then you have to raise questions or not. So on this slide, you have to tell me, where do you think you lie? Expectations in the supervisor. Now this is based upon the student survey. So this is a kind of a survey for the students. So now if any one of you is interested, he can raise his hand and tell me what do you think should be. So let me tell you how it is done. So read each of the statement below and then estimate your position in each. For example, with statement 1, so this is the first statement. If you believe very strongly that the supervisor's responsibility is to select a good topic, then you will tell 1. And if you think that both supervisor and researcher could be equally involved, you put ring at a 2, at 3, sorry. And if you think it is definitely the researcher's responsibility to select a research topic, then you will select it at 5. Similarly, the second question is, first question is about the research topic. So what do you think that research topic should be? You can raise your hand to answer it. Second is, it is the supervisor who decides which theoretical methodology is most appropriate, ya phir it is the researchers who should decide. And the last is the supervisor should develop an approach and a timetable for the research and study for the researcher, or it is the supervisor should leave the development of the program and the study to the researcher. So you can raise your hand. Walaikum assalam. You can raise your hand to answer it. Yes, Yunus Bilal. What do you think for the first point?
Sir, for the first question, I would give it 5. I believe the
Okay.
researcher responsibility is for selecting their own topic as they are pursuing their own interests. So
Okay.
it falls in that domain. As for the second and third question, sir, I'd go for the 3 mark. Both are equally
Okay.
responsible, and both should give their equal input in deciding how this research is going to progress further.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yunus, for your feedback. Yes, Aisha, what do you think?
So for the first question, I think it should be with mutual discussion. And
Mhm.
for the second one, I think obviously supervisor has more knowledge. And again.
Sorry, your signals were lost. So can you repeat?
So for the first one, I think
It's 0.3. Second,
yes, sir. And for second one, methodology, obviously researcher is on some initial stages and the supervisor has more knowledge. So
Mhm.
supervisor should be given opportunity. And the third one, I think supervisor is senior. So उनके
So
accordingly हमें decide करना होगा.
timetable of the research. Okay. Okay, Irfan, what do you think? Irfan?
Yes, sir. Sir, for the first one, I think I will ring 5 because it's the responsibility of the researcher to select a topic. For the second one, I will ring 2 or 3 because they will decide a middle way that how.
And the last one?
And the last one is the timetable, which depends upon the student researcher as well as on teacher supervisor. That when they will be available.
Okay, so you will rate it 3 as well. Yes, Arbaz, what do you think?
सर मशवरे में बेहतरी है सर, तो तीनों में 3 3 3 क्लिक होने चाहिए सर.
Okay, so if you ask me, um, according to me, the first question has, according to me, I think it should be 3. First question, because by selecting the topic, research topic, generally, uh, it is always good to have some feedback from the supervisor to see that if you say that okay, I want to do this research, and you are not accepting the supervisor's point of view in first question in selecting the topic, then it would be a slightly difficult. Then what supervisor will do is that he will tell you, okay, you have selected the topic, now do it by yourself. Okay, you're getting my point? So
Yes sir.
So it's better to sit at 3 for the first when you are selecting the research topic. Get some feedback from your supervisor when you are selecting the topic. Similarly, at the methodology, yeah, you should also get some feedback. So it should be 3. As far as the timetable of the research is concerned, it should be 5. Okay, so if I am your supervisor and I tell you, okay, you have to finish this research by June, and I don't know how your family life is, what are the conditions you are going through, are you doing a job, what are your scenarios. So it's better that it should be 4 or 5, but in this you should have to keep your supervisor on board. Okay, that okay, I will do this part by April, this part by June, this part by September, and I will defend my thesis by December. Okay, so you should make the time plan by yourself. So take the
Sir,
responsibility of your research. By taking the responsibility of your research, you will immerse yourself in your research. Don't just follow the instruction and close the door at the end of the day. Yes, Arbaz, you have a question?
सर ये जो टाइम टेबल सिलेक्शन है सर, अगर सुपरवाइजर के साथ मतलब इस पे भी डिस्कशन ना करे, तो अगर हमने ऐसा प्लान बनाया हो कि दरमियान में सर अगर वो इब्राट चला जाए तो फिर हमारी रिसर्च दरमियान में स्टॉप हो जाता है, तो आई थिंक वो भी 3 होनी चाहिए सर।
लेकिन आपकी रिसर्च है ना, that is your research, so you should know when you can do it and not. Okay, I'm not saying that you should not take your supervisor on board. You should take your supervisor on board, but it is your research. You should make the time plan. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So take the responsibility of the research. This is a very important point. The research you are doing is your research. You will be given the credit. When you will tell that I have done masters in geotechnical engineering, or I have done masters in water resources, or I have done masters in structural engineering, the next question people might ask you is not your GPA. They might ask you is, okay, what was your research topic? What have you researched on? Okay, so it's important that this is your topic. You should take the responsibility. Plan your days and weeks carefully. Set your goals for each day and each week. Make a goals, and this is applicable not only to your research, it is applicable to your job life as well. Okay, so you have to make plans. Be active and creative. Think that what you want to do and how you're going to do it. Seek information, advice. Talk to your supervisor. By supervisor, here in research can be any PhD, but it applies to your job as well. Wherever you are doing job, be active and creative, but at the same time, talk to your supervisor. Get yourself, don't take it to your heart and then think, okay, how I'm going to just go and talk to your supervisor. I can't do it. What do you think I should do? And things like that. Be very straightforward. When you should meet with your supervisor? Yes. So should we meet on Monday? Should we meet on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? So every beginning of the week has a pros and a con. So beginning of the week, you can get it over with quickly and you have whole week, but you have guaranteed date with work on. So, but for a meeting on Monday, then you will have to do work on Saturday and Sunday. So this is not a good thing that you have to work on weekend. If you have a midday, so the pro is a balance, good balance, give you time to work on the feedbacks, and your advisor will be probably not show up. Actually, this might be a pro that your supervisor might not be available, or he might be busy in somewhere else. End of the week, now this, so you might actually have something to show up by then. So you have a whole week to do something. So at the end of the week, so it is a pro. And at the same time, it can be a con that you might not have something to show. And on a weekend, so there is no pro in it. On a weekend, if you have a meeting on a weekend, so there is no pro, and your advisor is a workaholic. So good luck with that. So when to have them? Fortnightly, weekly, or as requested? So what do you think? When to have your meetings with your supervisor? Every week, fortnightly, after 2 weeks, or when your supervisor is available? What are your thoughts to have a meeting? Any one of you?
Sir, fortnightly, sir.
Initially, when your research is starting, so it's better to have meetings. Okay, Abdullah, please tell me what's your take on it. Or anyone else? Yes, Abdullah. So generally it's
Yes, sir.
preferable.
Yes, sir. May I comment?
Yes, please, Manzoor.
हेलो सर स्टार्ट में तो है वो जल्दी जल्दी मीटिंग करनी चाहिए, जब रिसर्च डायरेक्शन ले ले तो फिर 2 वीक्स कि कुछ ना कुछ काम किया हो ना स्टूडेंट ने, तो फिर उसके बाद मतलब ज़्यादा टाइम अगर ले भी तो कोई इशू नहीं।
I agree with you because it's better to have meetings initially early, like within like every week. Irfan, you have to comment. You want to
Yes, sir.
comment?
Sir, to have
Yes,
a good
please.
progress, we need to have proper meetings as early as possible. जिस तरह के मंजूर ने कहा कि स्टार्ट में जल्दी करना चाहिए, अगर बाद में कि हम ये कहें कि हमारा प्रोजेक्ट जल्दी हो जाए तो ये हमारे लिए बेस्ट रहेगा कि हम जितने ज़्यादा मीटिंग करें तो इतना अच्छा डायरेक्शन भी मिलेगा, जितना हम काम करें वो सर के आगे ही रखें, फिर बाद में हमारे लिए कोई मुश्किल नहीं होगी।
This is a very important point, Irfan, that you have to try to get meetings as early as possible. And sometimes, generally, a good supervisor, according to me, is the one who keep you on your toes. He meets you very oftenly, like he tries to meet you every week or fortnightly, and he asks you for the progress. And at the same time, in the meeting, you have to discuss some points. So if you can have more often meetings, your project methodology will be defined as quickly. If you tell, okay, after every 2 weeks I will come, and then after 2 weeks you come with 2 research paper, and you tell, okay, sir, I have read 2 research paper and I think this can be done, or so you haven't done literature survey, you have just read 2 research paper, and then you haven't done anything, and automatically your progress will be slowed down. If you will not meet your supervisor, your research will be slowed down. So it's better to meet at least once a week initially, and when your methodology is developed, your experimental methodology is developed, everything is done, then you can go for fortnightly. So let's suppose when you're developing your methodology, which generally takes place in your third semester when you select your supervisor. So in the third semester, you can meet like maybe weekly or fortnightly to develop the methodology. And as soon as you finish your coursework and you go to the thesis domain and you start working on your research, then you can meet maybe fortnightly or even when requested after 3 weeks, every 3 weeks, or maybe 1 month. So it depends upon the progress, how you can proceed. Remember that as often you will meet, the progress of your thesis will increase. You will do it more quickly. So remember that for a meeting, come with a proper agenda and make some proper minutes. Do some pre-reading. What is the length of you want to cover? So make a plan before coming to the meeting. I remember when I used to go to my supervisor, I have a page, and on that page I sit before going to the meeting at least 1 hour before the meeting, and I write down all the points I need to discuss. Either it is useless points, or I want to get permission to go for a conference, the equipment is not working, or maybe whatever it is in my mind, and I want to discuss experimental methodology is a failure, or whatever I want to discuss, I just write it down or show results so that nothing can be missed. Because your supervisor, sometimes if your supervisor is very busy and he gives you time after every fortnightly, like after every 14 days, and in that meeting you have 1 hour or 30 minutes to discuss your progress and to get the direction on like how you are going to do your research or whatever. So it's very important that you have a proper agenda in mind that what you are going to discuss. Okay? Which means that aim of the meeting should be clear in your mind. What are the points you need to discuss? And I used to remember I was sitting in front of my supervisor, and I used to tick all the points. Okay, this has been discussed. And sometimes in front of the supervisor I was writing the answer. Okay, the equipment is not working, he tells me change the equipment, use some other equipment, go to the mechanical lab and do the test. I write it down, go to mechanical lab. So it's very important that you have a proper agenda and aim of the meeting. And expectations of the meeting, sometimes supervisor will tell you, okay, this is a very simple thing, trivial, which means your week is gone. It is easy enough, which means like a month of your work. So you have, it depends like what additional task you get. So it's just a joke comic. So meeting summary. Now this is a very important point. You have to draw an agenda of your meeting, make notes, start at each meeting with a recap of the last. When you are meeting with your supervisor, tell, okay sir, we 2 weeks ago we discussed this points, so that your supervisor comes to know, okay, what he is planning to discuss in this meeting. It's a waste of time if you discuss the same things which have been discussed in the previous meeting. Plan the next meeting at the end of the previous alert, and supervisor to problem as they arise, and talk to your supervisor if you come to a problem. Then after the meeting, write the feedback, write what was discussed. And if you have written something and you want to get the feedback, so there are different stages. Get the feedback on the outline of the chapter. What are the draft, early, incomplete, complete? So what to expect from the feedback? So in the feedback, minimalistic feedback, no note specific questions, you have to raise them and raise them directly. So during the meeting or in your, if you have given a research paper and your research was reviewed but very few feedback was given, so you want to make sure, was my research, was my point clear? Do you agree with this? Should I include X? Is there too much Y? How could I improve my draft? So you have to ask your questions when you come to your supervisor and you get a draft reviewed. Okay? And similarly, detailed feedback. If it is a very detailed feedback, don't take it personal. If you have given a research paper to review and he has given you a red ink research paper and there was so many corrections to be done, it is a very good sign. Your supervisor has taken so much time to read it, and this is a very good sign. Don't take it personally, oh my writing skills are not that good. Don't take it like that. Be grateful that they have taken the time to read it in detail. Be pleased that they care enough to make the comments. Okay, so these are the positive qualities of your supervisor. Ask what they thought were the strengths and take comments on board and learn the lessons for the next time. Feedback summary. So it is actually so based upon this, it is a learning process, and you can't expect to have a perfect ideas or perfect academic writing style straight away. Everyone goes through it. I remember when I was submitting my first research paper, it was reviewed 12 times by my supervisor. It took me 5 months to submit a research paper. I was so bad in writing research paper. But with the passage of time, my quality of writing research paper improved. So many academics will make changes to other academic writing too. And this is a very common thing.
Yeah.
Mumtaz, you have a question? Okay. So do you have a question, any one of you, regarding the feedback? Okay. So how to make your supervisor happy? So this is a skill you need, and to make your you need to make sure that your supervisor is happy with your research. So be positive, work hard, meet the deadlines, and a thesis is a hard work, and this is all. Meet your deadlines and make yourself invaluable. Review papers, help run the labs, write something for like papers, notes. So this, some people do that as well to make this supervisor happy. And communicate with your supervisor, be open, honest, discuss your problems, discuss what is and what isn't working for you, discuss any pressures you are under. So if you are having some problem, you should go straight away to your supervisor. And it's a very important point that you should go and tell your supervisor, sir, I'm not feeling well, I can't do something. Or if you have some family problems, it's supervisor is your family here in university. Discuss your pressures. If they understand you better, then they can supervise you better. Don't try to second guess your supervisor. So their skills. So you have to understand how your supervisor is. Is he a authoritarian or a democratic? So you have to see about this. Naeem, you have a question? Okay. So if he is authoritarian, your supervisor, and uh, it can fast track your research. Here I have written PhD or your research or MS degree. And the con is your thesis may be a little resemblance to what you intended, but then your research will not remain yours. It becomes your supervisor's research and may drive you down path long known to be ineffective. But if it is a democratic won't influence your decisions, okay, whatever you are taking, but con is that may not nudge you in a good direction, may not help you identify common pitfalls, may not tell you when to stop. So if it is a your research and you are not taking input from your supervisor, then there are some problems which you can face like this. Okay. Similarly, regarding a supervisor, so if the supervisor is an unknown person in the department, so it has a pro and a con. If the supervisor is someone you may be there, so the pro might be you might become your his only postgrad student, so they will have a lot of time and likely to blame themselves for your lack of progress. So they can, if there is some lack of progress, then he can understand that it is his own fault, that because he has time to supervise you, but it was not possible, and there was some lack of progress, and he can blame himself. But the con is maybe they are to be blamed. Okay, perhaps there is a reason for them to be unknown. There is a reason people don't take him as his supervisor. So you have to see that if the person is unknown, so these are the pros and the cons. But if the supervisor is a renowned person, so the pro would be, if he's a renowned, this means that people are going to him because he publishes a research. So the pro would be he knows how to publish your research, will have many contacts, it will be very helpful. But con may have many students and little time for you. So the problem then would be that he will have very little time for you, and he will have many students to supervise and will take credit of your work. That's how they become renowned in the first place. It's just a joke, but he might take credit for your work. Any question? So key to success is communication, clarity, discipline, organization, knowing what you need, knowing your supervisor, motivation and determination, to be able to say no, to ask help, to be able to follow advice, to be able to keep things in perspective. Discuss the expectations at the beginning, keep your expectations realistic, be organized, and give sufficient notice for requests, be open, honest, be professional, take care of the ethics, and even successful relationship benefits from good management. But always remember, conflict can still happen, and supervision is just like a marriage, and even divorce is possible. So this is the end of your topic. Manage your supervisor and project is your goal. Remember that your goal is the same as your supervisor, to get a degree, PhD or a master's, and they are also human. They are unable to read your mind. So be open to them if you have a problem, and don't create conflicts. Okay. Now, do you have any questions you can ask? Any one of you? Yes, Arbaz.
सर कभी कभार सर हम क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं तो सर हम हमारे माइंड में ये नहीं होता कि सर ये जो सामने वाला बंदा है अभी मतलब इसको हम अपने अल्फाज में, चूंकि हम नेटिव स्पीकर्स तो नहीं है तो हम नॉर्मली बोलते हैं, लेकिन अगले वाले बंदे को इस तरह लगता है कि ये गुस्सा कर रहा है या मतलब आ, सर समझ रहे हैं सर कि तो इस चीज को सर, क्योंकि 2-3 मरतबा में मुझ पर इस तरह कमेंट भी हुए हैं कि मतलब मैं नॉर्मली क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ लेकिन सामने वाले बंदे को इस तरह लगता है कि मैं गुस्सा कर रहा हूँ, या तो एक तो इसको किस तरह डील कर ले। और दूसरा सर मेरे कोर्स कंटेंट के हवाले से क्वेश्चन था सर, हम अपार्ट फ्रॉम द प्रीवियस डिस्कशन, जनरल डिस्कशन ऑन प्रपोजल राइटिंग, हम डिटेल में प्रपोजल राइटिंग, रिसर्च प्रपोजल राइटिंग डिस्कस करेंगे या नहीं?
करेंगे, वी विल डिस्कस दैट.
ओके सर.
Okay, so yes, I agree with you, Arbaz. Sometimes this is the problem with the DL mode. We can't do anything. Like sometimes we don't know how you are in a very good mood and you are asking a question, but your way of asking a question might offend someone. So you have to understand the person you are talking to, how good he is in taking the question. That is it. So don't have to take it personally. Yes, Abdur Rauf?
I have a question from the assignment.
Yes, Abdur Rauf?
Sir, I want to know I want to know the format of the assignment. That you said that it should be having introduction, summary, and
It is. I have shared the document, Abdur Rauf. I have the document I have shown you. I have shared it on the LMS, so you can download it and read it. So the format is very much clarified over there, like how many paragraphs and how you have to write and all this.
सर
Yes, yes, sir.
सर ये जो हम क्रिटिक लिखेंगे सर, ये बेसिकली सर इसमें हमारे अपने आइडियाज़ भी शामिल होंगे, या इसमें तो बेसिकली हमने सर 2 से 4 पेपर को रिव्यू करना है ना सर, तो उनकी जो स्ट्रेंथ एंड वीकनेसेस होंगे या?
Yes, sir. You have to select only one research paper which you will critique. Only one research paper. Okay? You will select only one research paper to critique. You will just write a critique on that only single one research paper. You will, on the top of the page, you will write the name of the research paper that which you will be critiquing. But for to critique, you will have to read some 4 to 5 papers, and you will use those papers to critique and your own point of view as well. And you will give those papers a reference. So you will have to provide references in the end as well. So in that references, those 4 or 5 papers you can add.
सर मतलब अपना पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू भी लिखना है, और जो मतलब डिफरेंसेस इन ओपिनियन है या स्ट्रेंथ्स एंड वीकनेसेस हैं डिफरेंट पेपर्स की, और
जी बिल्कुल उसको भी यूटिलाइज करना है. यू हैव टू यूटिलाइज the point of view from other research paper to critique the research paper which you have selected. Okay?
यस, मतलब अपना ओपिनियन देना है कि मतलब इस जो है मतलब इस राइटर ने मतलब ये चीज़ है तो ये स्ट्रेंथ है और ये वीकनेसेस हैं.
हाँ जी. अब्दुल्ला? Yes, Abdullah, what is your question? Okay, Mariam, what is your question?
सर जो पेपर हम यूज करेंगे वो हमारे डिसिप्लिन से रिलेटेड होगा या कोई भी पेपर यूज कर सकते हैं?
Preferably your discipline would be good, because if you read related to your discipline, it would help you as well. Okay? Preferably your discipline of research or discipline of master's degree.
Thank you, sir.
And try to, a very important point is, because it has a plagiarism check, So don't copy paste lines from your research papers. This is a very important. Give your point of view. Okay, otherwise you will get very bad marks if it has been plagiarized. Okay, the limit is 15%. Okay, any other question?
Turnitin सही तरह काम नहीं कर रहा.
Yes, Osama?
जैसे टर्निटिन सही तरह काम नहीं कर रहा वो.
क्यों? क्या हो रहा है?
पेंटिंग पे लगा. अक्सर रिपोर्ट कर रहे हैं वो जो भी जमा कराओ वो 0 ही बताता है. और वो मैंने जो जमा कराई थी आप असाइनमेंट उसमें पेंडिंग में ही आई जा रहा है. अभी तक उसका रिजल्ट नहीं आया.
Because I have set in the Turnitin, I have set a certain criteria that you can't see the result of the Turnitin before the deadline. That's why you can't see the